Hello guys, so I'm creating this video to help you guys navigate through your path. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a example scenario that is similar to your path. Remember, the scenario in your path will be different from this one, but you need to use this video to guide you in how you would be able to complete subtask 1, subtask 2, and subtask 3 based on any given scenario. So just remember that the scenario that we are going to go through now in this video is not the scenario in your PAT. So please, you have to read your PAT instructions that I've shared with you. You have a different scenario that you need to gather information for in subtask 1, that you need to create and modify a work breakdown structure for in subtask 2, and that you need to create a PERT chart for in subtask 3. So please keep that in mind as we go through this video. It is to guide you in how to complete the PAT given a different scenario so that you can adapt this approach to tackle any given scenario. So let's get started. So for this example scenario, the description of the task. So Buertes Bakery have budgeted 50,000 Rand towards the project. To undertake the project, you must assemble your own team that includes a project manager, a systems analyst, designer, and 4 programmers. Your system development lifecycle stages are planning and research, design, development, testing, and implementation. It is estimated that the project will take 30 days to complete. So the description of the task is very important because it tells you the amount that the project is budgeted for. This is the maximum budget that this project is allowed to cost. And these are your team members that you will have at your disposal to to implement this project. So you have a project manager, a system analyst, designer, and 4 programmers. This is important because a work breakdown structure breaks down the work that is needed to complete a project, and it also specifies at some point which team members needs to do which tasks in the project to complete this project and how long will each task take. And then you've got your system development lifecycle stages. So this is also important because this will fit in when we look at the, the levels of tasks in a work breakdown structure. So this will make sense as we go through these subtasks and this example. Please remember again that the description of the task that we are going through here is an example, and you need to look at your PAT document that I've shared with you to get your description of the task. The subtasks are the same, but the content will obviously differ based on the scenario, but the approach to implementing the subtask 1, 2, and 3 will be the same. So let's get started. So just to put this out of the way, the gather information task, I will leave that one out of this video for time's sake. And you just need to read through the instructions and gather the necessary information that they ask for you there. So we'll focus more on subtask 2, how to create and modify a work breakdown structure, and how to create a PERT chart. So we're going to look at a specific work breakdown structure template that we're going to modify to meet our needs. And we're going to look at a tabular view of a work breakdown structure that also helps us identify who needs to do what in our team, who needs to do which tasks, and when they need to be completed. And then we will create a PERT chart. So this is important because this will also include a network diagram as well as a full-scale PERT chart. So let's get started with modifying a work breakdown structure. So I have shared 3 templates with you guys. there's a Word document of the work breakdown structure template, a work breakdown structure tabular template, and a Gantt chart template. The first one that we will look at is the work breakdown structure Word document template. That's the one that we will modify first, and we'll make this our main document. So let's quickly look at this one. Okay, so in this template, the first thing that we'll do is we'll take out the sections that we don't need. Okay, so we need this front page of the work breakdown structure because it is our subtask 1, our subtask 2, sorry. So we need this front page. We do need an introduction. We do need an outline view. So we keep that for now. We don't need the hierarchical structure, so we can remove it along with its structure. Then we don't need the tabular view because we will use an Excel spreadsheet that I've shared, template, so that you can do the tabular view for your work breakdown structure in tabular format. So I'm just going to put a page break here to put the tree structure view on a new page. We do need the tree structure view, which is this one, that we will modify to our scenario. We do need the work breakdown structure dictionary. We do need that. And we do need the glossary of terms. So next, I will just remove this last part. So next, let's modify this template to meet our needs. All right, guys, so we're going to be making this our main document. So first of all, let's insert two blank pages for now. And our first page will be our cover page. So we'll use this as part of our submission. So for my cover page, this is more or less what I want. So I have a title, I have my student number, I have my ID, I have my name, surname, I have the subject, and I specify what assignment this is. This is PAT2, POE3, and the date that we need to submit the PAT. On our next page, let's put in another page. The next page, let's just segment our tasks, our 3 subtasks. So let's do that. So our subtask 1 is going to be gathering information. Let's put that there. Our second task, let me just check what that is. Second task is to create and modify the work breakdown structure, which is actually this document. So we'll get to that now. And our third task would be the PERT chart. Let me get that. Our third task would be the PERT chart. So let's put each of them on a blank page so that we know those are the sections that we're segmenting this main document in. So let's remove this. This is our main cover page. And this is what we have so far. So we have our gather information task. So remember this one, we're not going to cover in the video. Please just look at the instructions for this task in your PAT. It should be clear enough. Then for subtask 2, that is to create and modify a work breakdown structure. So this is essentially this document. So let's take this subtask 3 out and put it at the end of this document, because this is our work breakdown structure for subtask 2 that we're going to be modifying, right? So everything from here in this template, after we remove the specific sections we don't need, will be subtask 2 up until the glossary of terms, just to get that out of the way. So now at the end of the glossary of terms, so that we don't forget, let's just put our last task there on that last page, which is subtask 3, to create a BERT chart. All right, guys, so let's make this document our own. So we need to change our logo. Remember, this is just a default logo that came with the template. And we also need to change our header. Okay, so let's do that. We double click on our header. Let's remove this image and put in something that is related to the scenario that we looked at. Remember, it was with this bakery from our scenario, and let's change this one to your student number. So just put your student number here. So please replace this with your actual student number. Then we have our cover page that we worked on, and we are leaving subtask 1 out of this video, and now we are moving to subtask 2, where we are going to modify the template itself further, the work breakdown structure template. So first, we do not need this text here. We do need the work breakdown structure heading, but let's remove template from it. The project name for the scenario that we're looking at in this video is going to be Boetes Bakery Management System. So let's replace that with Boetes Bakery Management System, and we can replace the address, the company details, the street address, state, city, and zip code with some information regarding Boetes Bakery. And let's make this let's make the date that I'm recording this, which is 28 July 2026. Let's also update our cover page with the correct date. Okay, so there we have our first part for the subtask 2. Now we need an introduction for Boetes Bakery and the work breakdown structure. So let me put my introduction here. So I'm going to replace the content of the template with my own introduction that is relevant to my scenario. So Boetes Bakery is a growing commercial bakery seeking to modernize and streamline its operational workflows through a dedicated software solution. So in today's competitive market, manual processes and fragmented record keeping can lead to inefficiencies, delays in order processing, and inaccurate inventory tracking. To address these operational challenges, this project aims to research, design, develop, test, and implement a custom software system tailored specifically to Boetes Bakery's business requirements. The resulting system will serve to optimize bakery workflows, enhance data management, and support the overall business growth. So the work breakdown structure presented here represents all the work required to complete this project. So now, with the introduction out of the way, we can move to the outline view. So we don't need a description of the outline view. Remember, these sections in green of this template is there to explain to you what this section is about. The goal of a template is for you to understand the sections and to be able to modify the content of the section. So you will see we've got our outline view here. So there's quite a few tasks in the outline view that they provide with the work breakdown structure template. However, for my scenario, I am going to have so let me first explain what the outline view is before we even look at it. So the outline view goes to show how you segment your tasks into different levels. So you have your level one way at the top, and the numbering is very important. You can see one there on the left hand side, the numeric bullet numbering. So we've got level one task, and then we have the next level is level two task. So then we have our level two tasks. Here, for example, this next one would be a level two task. And so on. So we'll modify this further. And then the last level that we'll look at is the level three task. So this is the actual task that we'll be tracking. Level three task. And these are all going to be level three tasks under the level two tasks. Right? So this is also going to be level. Okay, so our level one task is going to be the Boertis Bakery Management System. It's the system that we want to achieve, the system as a whole that we want to achieve. Remember, your system will be different based on the scenario in your pad. But my level one is going to be the system that we are creating for Boertis Bakery, and it's a Boertis Bakery management system. Now, your level two tasks, or my level two tasks, based on my scenario, remember the scenario that we were given, specifically told us the stages that we need to look at for the system development lifecycle. So planning and research, design, development, testing, implementation, those are going to be my level two tasks. And underneath each of these stages, there I'm going to have my level three tasks, which is the individual tasks for each stage to complete this project as a whole. So let's go back to the document that we are editing. So my first level two task would be the first phase of the system development lifecycle that was included in the description. So it would be phase one, planning and research. The next level two task would be phase two, and that would be design, right? So let me remove these unwanted tasks. Let me first of all do that before we proceed. I'm only going to have 5 phases, and we'll do the individual tasks now. So this is going to be level 3 task over here. It's also going to be a level 3 task here. Level 3 task. And so let's do our next level 2 task. It's going to be phase 2, which is design. Let's do our next level 3 task, which is phase 3, level 2 task, which is phase 3, development. Let's do our fourth level 2 task, which is the plan testing. And our last one, which is phase implementation. Now I have my level 1 task here, and I have all my level 2 tasks here, which is the phases of my system development lifecycle. Now, underneath each of these level 2 tasks, there will be level 3 tasks. These are the specific tasks we need to implement this Poetis Bakery management system. What do we need to do in the planning and research phase? What do we need to do in the design phase? What do we need to do in the development phase? What do we need to do in the testing phase? And what do we need to do in the implementation phase? So think about the scenario that you are given, and realistically, so you will divide it into your 5 phases, or the phases they give you, and then you need to logically think a bit out of the box what each of these phases will entail. What tasks will we need to complete here to actually implement this project? So this is what I came up with for my scenario in my level 3 task underneath phase 1, planning, research, and design. So I have defined scope, objectives, and budget parameters as my first level 3 task, and my second level 3 task for this is to conduct staff interviews and analyze manual bakery workflows. So what tasks can I put under design for my scenario? So let's take a look at what I have here. So what I have here, second. So what I have here is construct data flow diagrams and entity relationship diagrams, structure relational database tables, keys and schemas. Then for the development, what do we actually need to do under development for Poetis Bakery? So I have configure development repositories and database environments. Then program the core features of this Poetis Bakery management system. For testing, I will have technical testing and user acceptance testing. And for implementation, I will have system deployment and user training. All right, so this is my outline view. I have my level 1 task, which is my main system that I'm developing. Then I have my 5 level 2 tasks, which are the 5 phases of the SLD is system development lifecycle that was mentioned in the description of the task. And underneath each phase, I have my level 3 tasks for that phase. And it relates to the phase as well as the scenario and my introduction that I gave about what Poetis Bakery is about. So now that we have the outline view, what is important here is you will need to be creative with your level 3 tasks for each of these phases, because you would need to, in your work breakdown structure dictionary, you would need to explain what each of these are. If you're going to say define scope, objectives, and budget parameters as a task, you will need to explain what that means. What does it mean? What does it entail? So think about each one of these that you put down, because you will put that in your work breakdown structure dictionary as well. So I think that would be, before we look at the tree structure view, that would be our next step, is to do our work breakdown structure dictionary. So remember, it is in our template, so we'll keep the tree structure view for now because we'll modify it soon. Here's our work breakdown structure dictionary. So we remove the green text, and we need to now modify the dictionary. So this is your dictionary. You have your level of the task. So remember, we have level 1, level 2, and level 3 tasks. remember we have the work breakdown structure code, which relates to our outline view. Remember our level 1 task was 1, and then we got 1.1 for a level 2 task. Our first level 3 task was 1.1.1. Our second level 3 task was 1.1.2, and so forth. So let's do this for Boetes Bakery. So this is what I came up with for Boetes Bakery. So I have each of my tasks here in order from the outline view. From our outline view, that is from 1 up until 1.5, up until 1.5.2. I have my work breakdown structure dictionary, which lists the level, the work breakdown structure code, which is just the numbering of that task in our outline view. And the most important part of this is the description. Remember, I said each task in your outline view, what you put there, you need to explain what it is. You need to define it. So we need to define, what does Boetes Bakery Management System mean? What does phase 1 planning and research mean? What does define the scope, variables, and budget parameters, which is our first level 3 task? What does it mean? So I have here, for example, it establishes clear project boundaries, modernizing goals, and financial baselines within the allocated 50,000 budget constraint. So you would do that essentially for each task in your outline view. You take the label, you take the code, which is the numbering, bullet numbering for that task in your outline view. You give the name, which is the name of that task, and then you need to describe it. You need to define what it means. And you do this up until you have all your tasks from your outline view in this table from start to finish. So now that we have the work breakdown structure dictionary out of the way, we have a glossary of terms. So these are some of the built-in glossary terms that came with the work breakdown structure. So you can look at some additional terms that you feel you need to include here. For now, I will just keep these terms as is, because we are going to be using the work breakdown structure code, and so that it brings a glossary of terms basically describes terms that is used in this document that might not be clear, that needs to be described. So this explains what a work breakdown structure code is. Like, for example, it's a unique identifier assigned to each element in a work breakdown structure, and so forth. So I'm going to leave the glossary of terms as is for now and proceed with what we did for subtask 2. So we did our outline view. From our outline view, we used those tasks to create the dictionary where we listed each task. So this is our level. We know this is a level 1 task. We know these are level 2 tasks, our phases, and we know the tasks below our phases is our level 3 tasks. So that's where we find the level in our dictionary. Then the work breakdown structure code is this bullet numbering for that task. And the element name is the actual name of this task next to the bullet numbering. And then the definition is where you would need to apply your mind to describe what you said this task. So you need to define this task, what you said here. You need to explain it so that we know what does defining the scope means. What does it mean to the objectives and the budget parameters? What does it mean in the given scenario? So that it's not just something that you put here without thinking about what it actually means and what we want to achieve, and that it's not a copy-paste scenario that we get. Okay, so everything will be from this outline view. This is our starting point that we use. We use this outline view to create the work breakdown structure dictionary, and we left the glossary of terms as is. So next, we need to look at the tree structure view. So again, we can remove this green comment because it just gives us the instruction of how to use this section. So you would see this tree structure where you can edit the one that is here. It's a hierarchical structure, the tree structure, and you start with your level 1 task, right, way at the top, which is going to be the Boertes Bakery system. Then you have your level 2 tasks, which are going to be your phases. Then you have your level 3 tasks, which are going to be the phases of the tasks for each phase to be completed. And just below the name, so you see that we've got the name of the task, and then we've got the work breakdown structure code, which was the numbering from our outline view. So let me do the one for Boertes Bakery. So guys, this is the one I have for Boertes Bakery for the tree structure view. Boertes Bakery management system is my level 1 task, so it's at the top of the hierarchy of the tree structure view. Then it is the work breakdown structure code for this task from our outline is 1. Then we have our phases as our level 2 tasks, right? We have phase 1, which is the planning and research, phase 2, up until phase 5, which is the implementation. And remember, the work breakdown structure code should be below the name of the task. And then underneath each phase, we have our level 3 tasks, right? So that's what I have here. So for example, under phase 1, we have define scope, objectives, and budget parameters. And the work breakdown structure code for this task from our outline view was 1.1.1. And then we have the one for 1.1.2, which was to conduct the staff interviews and to analyze the manual bakery workflow. So you do this up until you have all your tasks up until phase 5. Your level 1 task, all your level 2 tasks, and all your level 3 tasks listed here with the number below it. All right, guys, so for now, this is what I wanted for the first template, the work breakdown structure Word document template. Next, we need to modify our work breakdown structure tabular template that is in Excel. So if we open it, we first need to do the work breakdown structure in our Word document that we did, right? Because we need, as you can see from the template, we need to know the level, the work breakdown structure code, the element name, and then we will have to think about preceding tasks and the responsible person, how long each task will take, and how much it will cost. Remember, the duration of days in total cannot exceed the number of days that the project has been allocated to. Otherwise, it will run behind schedule or it's overestimated. And the cost cannot exceed the budget that was given. The responsible person can only consist of team members from your description that was given for from the PAT, and that you will have to then think about your preceding tasks for each of those individual level 3 tasks that we listed here. So let me do the one for Boertes Bakery, and then we'll quickly look at that. All right, guys, so I did mine. So essentially, again, this you use your outline view and you need to specify all your tasks from your outline view, and you just port the information from your outline view to this spreadsheet. So remember, we had, let me get that outline view for you so that it makes a bit more sense. Let me see. Remember, this was my outline view for Boertes Bakery. So you can see I just ported the information from the outline view into my Excel template. You can see here Boertes Bakery management system, and that is my level 1 task on the Excel sheet. My work breakdown structure code is the code from the outline view. The element name is the name of this task, which is Boertes Bakery management system. And this particular task has no preceding task because it is our main system that we want to achieve. And the responsible person for implementing this project is the project manager that I took from the scenario that we had. And the max duration for this whole project was 30 days. It was 30 days. And the cost in Rand for this whole project was 50,000. So I would use this work breakdown structure or this outline to, because we want to essentially track the subtasks. We want to set the level 3 tasks. We want to track the level 3 tasks. We don't necessarily want the main one and the phases, because remember, the level 3 tasks make up the tasks, the level before it. So I'm going to remove the tasks that are not level 3 tasks. So I would recommend you do the same for this tabular view. Only include the level 3 tasks. So I'll remove this one, I'll remove this one. I'll remove this one so that I only have level 3. I see there's a level 2 task here. So I only have level 3 tasks. This makes this much more manageable and easier to read as well, and easier to print as well, because we will need to print this to submit it as well. So you've got your level. Let's quickly go refer back to our work breakdown structure. We've got our level, and it's only going to be level 3 tasks. And we have our work breakdown structure code, which is the code, which is the bullet numbering next to our level 3 task for our outline. And then we've got the element name, which is the name of that level 3 task. And now we need to think about the preceding tasks. So for example, I said conducting staff interviews and analyzing manual bakery workflows is dependent on defining the scope, objectives, and budget parameters. That's why task 1.1.1, which is this one, it needs to be completed first before we go on to this one. An example for this one, construct the data flow diagrams and entity relationship diagrams. I said task 1.1.2 needs to be completed first. So this task needs to be completed first. We first need to do interviews and analyze manual bakery workflows before we can construct the data flow diagrams and entity relationship diagrams, which makes sense, right? And then we also have some tasks that are dependent on more than one task. So for example, the program core features, I said it is responsible for the preceding task 1.2.2 and 1.3.1. So 1.2.2 is structure relational database tables, keys, and schemas. Yes, we will need that before we can program the core features. And yes, 1.3.1, we would need to configure the development repositories and database environments before we can program the core features. So this is very important that we need both of these to be completed. So this is going to, again, take you to take your level 3 task and again apply your mind to see which tasks need to precede the other tasks and who is going to be responsible for that task, your project manager, your system analyst, or your developer. Then you need to make sure that your duration for each task is realistic, and it does not, if we count all these days together, it does not exceed the total duration allowed for this project. And also be realistic about how much each task would cost, so that and if we add all of these up, it would not exceed the budget. So we add 30 days from the scenario, so the tasks cannot exceed 30 days, and the budget cannot exceed 50,000 for the scenario. These are the team members that I had to work with, and these are the level 3 tasks that I took from my outline view in my work breakdown structure Word document that we worked on previously. Then I had to apply my mind to think, okay, which tasks are going to be dependent on previous tasks so that it makes logically sense, because we're going to have to use this to create our network diagram and our PERT chart. So next I will give an overview of the network diagram. All right, so let's take a look at the network diagram. So what I would do is I would make a duplicate of the sheet. So you say move or copy, right click on it, move or copy, and you say create a copy. And then you would see this one is created. Just move it to the end so that you know this is your original work breakdown structure table, and this is the one you're going to modify so that you can just use it as a reference for drawing your network diagram, because we don't need all this information in the network diagram. In the network diagram, we don't need the level. We don't need to know the level. We already know it's all going to be level 3 tasks. We do need the work breakdown structure code. We don't need the element name if we're going to use the work breakdown structure code, because our outline tells us, and our dictionary, work breakdown structure dictionary from our Word document tells us what each of these work breakdown structure codes, what the task is and what it means. So we don't need this column for creating the network diagram. We also don't need this column for the responsible person, because we don't show who's responsible for the tasks on a network or PERT chart. We just want to see how long the task is going to take, and we need to find the path. So we also don't need the cost. So we just need this. We just need the code, the preceding tasks, and how long it would take. So usually what I do is I take a screenshot of this. So I click print screen on my keyboard. I take a screenshot of this, and then I go to PowerPoint. I create a new blank presentation and I paste it there, and I use this diagram as a guide, this table as a guide to create my network diagram. So I'm going to do that. Right, guys, so what I did was I took a screenshot of that table, and then I pasted it on PowerPoint, and then I started creating the circles which will be the nodes for my network diagram. So it is quite easy to do this in PowerPoint. So you just insert a shape. So I'll just demonstrate one, and then you should know how to create it. So you create your circle, you change your fill to white, you change your outline to black, and you need to change the font color first to black, and the size to a smaller font size so that it fits in there. And then you put your work breakdown structure code up until you have all of them, and below it is the duration, how long it's going to take in days. So we see our first one is 1.1.1, right? And task 1.1.1 will take 2 days. So that's why we have a 2 there. And then I just copied this until I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Until I had, how many nodes are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Until I had 10. Until 10. So until I had all my tasks. So I have my work breakdown structure code, and then I have the duration. So let me just delete this. The next thing then is to draw your network diagram using these circles that you drew. You move them around and you draw arrows between them to show which tasks are linked or predecessors to other tasks. So this is what mine looks like. So again, I'm just putting this table screenshot here as a reference. Then I took my nodes my nodes of my tasks that I drew for my network diagram. from task 1.1.1 up until 1.5.2. And then I looked at what is the preceding task so that I know which tasks is dependent on other tasks. So for example, you see 1.1.1 does not have any preceding task. So that's why it's on its own there. 1.1.2, the preceding task for that one is task 1.1.1. That's why we have the arrow showing there. Then our next task is going to be 1.2.1, and 1.2.1 is dependent on 1.1.2. So that's why we have this arrow here. Task 1.3.1 is also dependent on 1.1.2. So that's why we have this arrow here. So the same way that you drew your network diagram for the test that we did, it's the same principle, except this time around we are using the code, the work breakdown structure code for that task instead of the task name, because the task names are very long, and we still have the duration in days, but in days this time below the work breakdown structure code. Then we draw the arrows based on which tasks is dependent on the other tasks. So next, after you've completed this network diagram, you will use it to create your PERT chart. So your PERT chart is essentially based on your network diagram, but we will replace these circle nodes with sort of like a table in between, so that we can calculate the early start, early finish, late start, and late finish for each task. So I'll show you how to do that now. So I copied my network diagram here as a reference. So before we look at this PERT chart, so below is the PERT chart based on the network diagram. So before we look at that in detail, first of all, note that you see it is identical to the network diagram in that, but instead of the circle nodes, we have these table rectangular type of nodes in between. We still have this one here, this one here, these two over here, this one over here, this one is over here, we have this one here, over here, and then we have our last two there. So that is how you would use your network diagram to create your PERT chart. So how does a PERT chart work? What does it mean? So these blocks, you use these square blocks and these rectangles, and inside the rectangles are specific squares. So the first one is the early start, the second one is the duration, then you've got your early finish, and then below in the left corner you've got your late start, then you have your slack, and then you have your late finish. And in the center of this rectangle you have the task name, which is going to be our work breakdown structure code. So the abbreviation for early start is ES, right? The abbreviation for duration is DUR, and the abbreviation for early finish is EF. The abbreviation for late start is LS, and the abbreviation for late finish is LF. So that's why I abbreviated it in this one. So the ones in gray is for explaining what the tasks below mean. So next I'm going to show you how to calculate it. So if you look at first of all, if you look at the PERT chart below, right? You got your rectangle. So I have my abbreviations there, my ES for my early start for each block. And I've got my early finish, I've got my late start, and I've got my late finish, and I've got my task code. So I did that. I only entered, the only change I made was duration. I changed dur to the actual duration. I know 1.1.1 takes two days, and I remember to put your your task code over there in the center. I know the second one took 3 days. I know this one took 3 days. I know this one took 2 days. I know this one took 2 days. How do I know this? I know it from my network diagram, right? Up until the very last one, which is 1.5.2, which took 2 days. So the only changes I made here was I used my network diagram to replace the circle nodes with these rectangles. And I'll show you how to draw these rectangles now. I left my abbreviations for early start, early finish, late start, late finish in my rectangles. However, I did start changing the text, the task name in the center of each of these rectangles so that I know which work breakdown structure code I am looking at for each task. And I found this from the code in my network diagram. I also changed the duration for each to show how long in days it takes for each of these tasks to be completed. So next we need to calculate the early start, early finish for each of these, and then the late start and late finish for each of these, which is not that difficult. But let me first show you how you can create the square block. I will put in the description a template that you can use with these square blocks, but let me just show you just in case. Let me just show you in case you can insert a table. So we need it to be 3 by 3. And then we change the design to be like this. And then we need to merge the center. So let's go to the table layout. We merge the center cells. Then we just make it smaller. We just make these columns smaller. See, then essentially you have your rectangle. And here you can type your code, which is maybe your 1.1.1, for example. You would center that, and you would say your ES for early start, your EF for early finish. Remember your duration there in the center, your DUR, and then your late start and late finish. We're not going to worry about the slack for now. Then you would just use this. You would continue to copy this one that you've created until you have enough rectangles for each task in your network diagram. Then you modify the duration to match the duration of each task, and you modify the code naturally to match the work breakdown structure code for each task in your network diagram. So let's proceed to calculating the early start, early finish, and those things of the PERT chart. So over here, again, remember in gray, it's just for reference. Remember, this is what we have for our PERT chart rectangles, and we needed to calculate the early start and early finish. Now, in our previous one, we had the duration and the code in the middle. So the early start for the very first task, let me try to zoom in a bit. Or let me try to show this in full screen. So the early start, this ES, for the very first task is going to be 0 because it starts at day 0. And the duration doesn't change, right? It was still 2 days. Now we can calculate the early finish. The early finish for the first task is going to be the early start of that task plus the duration of that task. So 0 plus 2 is going to be 2. That's where we get the early finish for the first task. So the first task is key because you need the early finish for the first task to go to the preceding tasks, because each succeeding task, the early start for each succeeding task will be the early finish of the previous task. So you see, I literally carried the 2 days over to the early start of my next task, right? We said our first task took 0, started at day 0. It was 2 days long. That's why our early finish was 2 days. I carried the early finish of 2 days to the next task to say this is when the next task starts. It starts after 2 days. And now I need to calculate the early finish for this next task. And that's going to be its early start plus its duration, which is 2 plus 5, which is going to give 2 plus 3, which is going to give us 5. Now again, we carry the early finish of the previous task to the next task, right? As the early start. So our next task will start in 5 days. And now we need to calculate the early finish for that task, which is going to be its early start plus its duration, which gives us the 8. Again, we carry over the 8 to the early start of the next task, and we add the duration of 2 days to it to calculate the early finish, which will give us 8 plus 2 is 10. Again, this one below, we carried the early finish of this task to the early start of the next task, and we added the duration of this task to it to calculate its early finish, which gave us 7. Now, when you get to a task that is dependent on 2 previous tasks, both previous tasks, right? And the early finish for the previous tasks are not the same. You can see here, task 1.3.2 is dependent on 1.2.2 and 1.3.1. But the early finish for 1.2.2 is 10 days, and the early finish for 1.3.1 is 7 days. So it's not the same. We've got 10 days and 7 days. You have to take the duration that is the longest out of your previous tasks that lead to this next task. So that's why we took the 10. We carried over the 10 as the early start for this next task instead of 7, because we need to take the longest one, the one with the longest duration, to have an accurate estimate. Because if we say 7, then we discard that this tasks need more than 7 days to complete this other task, 1.2.2. So that's why we use 10. And the duration for this task was 10 days. So we added 10 plus 10, which gives us 20. And then we carried the early finish of this task to its succeeding tasks, 20 and 20. And then we took the duration of these tasks and added them together. So 20 plus 2 gives us 22. And task 1.5.1, sorry, was also 2 days. So that also gives us 22. So here we have a scenario where a subsequent task is dependent on 2 previous tasks, but they have the same early finish. So that then we just take because it's the same, we use the 22. Both are 22, so we use 22 as the early start for the next task. Then we add its duration to calculate its early finish, which will give us 22 plus 2 is 24. And then we carry that 24, which is the early finish of that task, to the early start of the next task. And for that task, we add its duration to give the early finish, which gives us 26. And there we have our early finish and our early start, and our early finish for each of these tasks. Now we can do the late finish and late start. So the late start is going to be the early or the early finish of the very last task. So we take this 26, we put it as the late finish for this very last task. Now, instead of adding the duration, we subtract. So we say 26 minus 2 days is going to give us 24. Then we have the late start for the very last task. Now we need to continue to propagate backwards up until we reach the very first task. So we follow the same approach. We carry over now the late start of the succeeding node to the previous node. So we carry over the 24 to the late finish of the previous node. Now that we have 24 here, we subtract the duration of that task. So 24 minus 2 gives us 22. Again, now we carry over the late start for this task to the previous task. So the late start is 22 for the succeeding task, so that's going to be 22 for the late finish of our previous task for both our previous tasks that's linked to this task. And then we need to subtract the duration. So 22 minus 2 gives us 20. For the one above again, it's the same. 22 minus 2 gives us 20. Now we have two subsequent tasks that leads to a single previous task, but both of them have the same late start. So both of them have 20. So we take the 20 as the late finish for the previous task, and then we subtract the duration of that task. So 20 minus 10 is 10, and now we have a situation where we have again two previous tasks that is dependent on this task. So we take the late start of this task and we carry it over to the first previous task. So 10 for the late finish and 10 for the late finish of these two. And then we subtract the duration for each task. So this one is minus 2. 10 minus 2 gives us the 8 for the late start. And this one was also 2 days. So 10 minus 2 gives us the 8 for the late start over here. Now we have a situation where the late start of two subsequent tasks are different for one previous task, right? We can see both of these tasks lead to this previous task, but they are different. The late start for task 1.2.1 is 5, while the late start for task 1.3.1 is 8 days. So remember when we were calculating the early start and the early finish, the top ones, we took the highest early finish, but now we need to take the lowest one. So between 5 and 8, we take the lowest one, which is 5. So 5 is going to be the late finish of our previous task, and we subtract the duration of that task, which is 3, which gives us the 2 for our late start. And then again, we carry over our late start as the late finish of our previous task, and we subtract the duration, which is 2 days, and we are left with 0.